Barry Allen. I am the fastest man alive.
Good evening everybody, how are we all doing? I hope having a good week so far. So today is Wednesday the 12th of November 2014. So we're back with a new episode of Flash. Obviously it took a break last week. So we're back with a new episode this week, and episode 5 titled Plastique. Obviously the character that we see in this episode is the title of said episode. Few things occurred in this episode. Another pretty good episode. It did feel a bit flat in certain areas, but overall really good. We get to see Barry run up the side of a building, although between himself and Caitlin and Cisco, they had to calculate how fast he would need to run to not only be able to run up the side of the building, but to ensure that when he comes back down, he doesn't, splat on the floor, essentially. So, yeah, they sort of calculated it. But what was happening beforehand was that Barry, along with Caitlin and Cisco, and also Eddie and Iris, were all out drinking. They're at a bar, and then this is when Barry realises that no matter how much alcohol he consumes, he can't get drunk. He cannot get wasted whatsoever, so that worries him. But obviously Caitlin explains it's because his metabolism is so high and is generating at such an accelerated rate that, it just doesn't affect him whatsoever. So, yeah, bless him, he's not happy. So we meet Plastique for the first time pretty much at the beginning of the episode. And when Barry and Joe West are investigating the explosion that occurred at the building, which is where Barry saves a guy from the side of the building, Barry says, tells Joe that he can't see any remnants of any explosives or anything. No idea what caused the blast. Eventually, his investigation leads to Before his investigation leads to where it leads to, what I'm going to say next is that obviously Clancy Brown features in this episode as well. I'll tell you what, that guy gets around. Clancy Brown is obviously the guy who voiced Lex Luthor in the Justice League animated series, and he's also been in films like Highlander, and currently last season he was in Sleepy Hollow as well, and so he's been a busy guy. So here he is now in the Flash as General Wade Eiling, who is very interested in the person responsible for the explosion. And eventually when Barry learns about what's really going on, realises that the explosion wasn't caused by a bomb but by a person. And that's where we come to Plastique, aka Betty Sans Suki. Again, Cisco gives her the nickname. Where does he get these names from? I don't understand how he's able to pick these nicknames out of the air. I mean, he's already named, the Mist, Multiplex, a few other people, Captain Cold in particular. So he's really, hitting the mark with these awesome names of his own back. But yes, so Plastique, let's just say she doesn't want to, she thinks that the army are responsible for her abilities, but eventually it is revealed to her that no, that's not what happened. You were actually caught up in a lightning storm. That was the backlash of the particle accelerator. So when Barry realizes that she's also metahuman, he then tries to, bring her in closer to the group, whereas Caitlin, Cisco and Dr. Harrison Wells aren't too sure about her. They don't want her to be part of their group, essentially. Barry wants to welcome her in. He wants to help her. He believes that she doesn't want to cause all these explosions just for the sake of it. So he really does feel for her, on that side of things. At the same time, Cisco develops a crush on her. Bless his cottons. On the flip side, obviously, we've got Iris West, who sees the Flash for the first time. Barry does the same thing to Iris what he did to his dad when he rescued Joe from from the mist in the third episode. He basically vibrates his face so that Iris can't see who he is. But then Iris does something that Barry did not expect her to do. She starts writing about him. Not Barry, obviously, but about the streak. Can I just quickly mention about the streak? If it wasn't for Smallville, if Smallville had never happened, and let's say they did decide to bring the Flash back onto TV, I don't think they would be using the streak. I reckon they would be using the blur. So yeah, thanks Smallville for taking the blur away, because now the Flash is using the streak, which is it just doesn't sound right. It really doesn't sound right. Every time they say the streak in this episode or in this show, I cringe. I literally cringe. I was like, no, please stop, please stop. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So yeah, so she starts writing a blog, and Joe's getting worried. Barry's getting worried. Barry talks to Iris, but then Iris takes things a little bit further, and even when the Flash faces against Iris, it still doesn't stop her from writing the blog. So yeah, that just doesn't help whatsoever. There was a bit of a couple of teases. The major one was at the very end of the show, so if you watched it right to the very end, you'll know exactly what was teased. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But another one was of Caitlin holding onto a wooden boomerang. That's all I'm going to say on that one. But yeah, like I say, it was a really good episode. We eventually get to the point of where Harrison Wells, I tell you what, he is a bad man. He's a very bad man, a very, very bad man. He somehow convinces Plastique to go up against General Eiling, and whether or not what happens to her in this episode was what he had intended to occur, we don't know. But when General Eiling comes back to see Harrison Wells, because they track Eiling and his troops track Plastique down at Star Labs. Initially, but when he comes back to see Harrison, a little conversation goes on between the pair of them, and we're flashing back to 5 years ago, and that's where we are teased about something that appears at the end of the episode. It's actually sort of a conversation between them sort of took place, well, not between Harrison and Eiling, but between Barry and Harrison was telling the gang who General Eiling was and what he was conducting. He was conducting certain experiments years ago, and again, I'm not going to say what those experiments are, because it kind of will give away the tease at the end of the episode as well. So, oh my god. And let's just say that we already know that when they tease something in either Arrow or the Flash, they don't tease it just for the sake of it. They've got something in motion. There's something in motion for whatever they tease. So I'm looking forward to see how they pull it off. Really looking forward to see it. Can't wait. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all very much for watching. Before I go, if you were able to check it out, they have just released a new picture for Arrow of Katie Cassidy in her Black Canary uniform, and she looks good. I just hope she's going to lose the mask at some point very soon, because the mask just doesn't work for her as it did for Sarah. But that's not to say that she shouldn't keep the mask, but I'm hoping that as time goes on, she won't need it. But she looks good. So can't wait to see that in action very soon. That'll be awesome. Anyway, thank you all very much. See you all very soon. Bye.